Hello everybody, I'm Rona from Eric's Tachyon Chamber near Poitiers in France. We've already spoken. We're going to have this interview today as our second instalment on Tachyon Chambers, where we'll continue to make progress understanding Tachyon Chambers. We suggest people who've heard the first interview, who haven't heard the first interview, in fact, to listen to the second one before listening to this one. And the link will be given after we've finished. So thank you very much for accepting this interview on Tachyon Chambers, which will be divided into two parts: history and genesis, and how it works and the treatments. So let's begin. How long have Tachyon Chambers existed in the universe?
The Tachyon Chambers have existed for hundreds of millions of years at least, since the time when the advanced cosmic civilizations have discovered tachyons and utilized them for Tachyon Chambers.
Okay, what different civilizations of galactic beings use Tachyon Chambers?
I would say all galactic civilizations that reach a certain threshold of evolution, spiritually and technologically, use tachyons, because tachyons are the particles that are very much directly connected to the source and are actually first manifested matter in this universe.
Okay, and at the moment, what does using a Tachyon chamber do for individuals, knowing that they're operated by these very spiritually evolved beings?
It helps in spiritual evolution of those individuals that use the Tachyon chamber, and of course it also helps with healing of their situations, their bodies, their emotions, their mind, their complete makeup.
Okay. Do Tachyon chambers vary depending on which different galactic civilization uses them?
Of course, the actual design can vary, but the basic technology, there are few principles based on advanced physics that do not change.
Okay. When did the first Tachyon chambers arrive on Earth?
Actually, they were here also hundreds of millions of years ago when there were previous cosmic civilizations visiting Earth, but more recently they were present here in Atlantis.
Okay. What civilizations brought them to Earth?
Both Pleiadians and Sirians have brought them to Earth in Atlantis.
Okay, and where could it be accessed? In what type of location?
They were used in healing temples, in initiation temples, and also in some private homes.
Okay, did they disappear when the quarantine was established?
Basically, what happened was that the quantum link between the surface of the planet and the Tachyon field was severed. So that connection was gone, and Tachyon chambers were not useful anymore. Since the quarantine was established, there were still some partially functioning Tachyon chambers, especially in the temples, but all this has gone. All this has been completely destroyed about 2,000 years ago.
Okay, so let's move on to the subject of pyramids. Are there any pyramids today that have a certain percentage of activation?
I would say the pyramids which were built in Atlantis, for example, the Great Pyramids in Egypt, they still have some residual connection with the Tachyon field.
Do the Tachyon chambers connect energetically to pyramids, temples, and other constructions that are
all the Tachyon chambers that we built are connected to the planetary light grid, so they're all connected also to the temples and pyramids and other locations.
And what's the goal of this?
To strengthen the light grid around the planet.
Okay. In connection with tachyonic energy, can you tell us about the Mayans and other connected civilizations? What is or was their connection with the source and tachyonic energy?
The Mayans were connected with the Pleiadians, and they knew to a certain degree about the existence of the Tachyon chambers.
Ah, okay, so they were connected. At the moment, what's the link, the energetic role between the Tachyon chambers and Agartha?
In the Agartha network, there are many tachyon chambers quite active right now, and they are supporting the planetary light grid.
Okay, and is there a certain type of tachyon chamber in Agartha?
They are using some tachyon chambers based on old Atlantean technology, and there are, in few rare occasions, there are also Pleiadian tachyon chambers existing there.
Okay, and what's the interaction between the tachyon chambers on the planet's surface and the portal at the center of the Earth?
The tachyon chambers are connected both with, I would say, source of tachyon field high up in the sky, and are also connected to the portal in the center of the Earth, and this creates a pillar of tachyon energy which flows through the chamber.
Okay. Well, thank you for the first part of this interview, and on to the next, which will be slightly longer. So how it works and treatments. Tachyon chamber technology, as you've just said, is very ancient. So why was tachyon chamber technology only made available recently?
Because humanity was not ready before. It was actually offered to humanity before, but there was no interest. There was no receptivity. So as soon as the consciousness was ready, tachyon chambers could spread around the world.
Logical. So on another subject, when a St. Anime stone is buried, an angelic being is also anchored there. What's the role difference between these two types of angelic beings, the one in a tachyon chamber and that of a Sintamani stone?
Angelic beings working with the tachyon chambers are focused on the healing of a human being subjected to the healing process in the tachyon chamber, and Sintamani stone angels are more focused on anchoring the light into the planetary grid.
Okay, and what is the role of the tachyon chamber in Molnir technology?
It is not the highest purpose to answer this question.
Okay, so I imagine that all tachyon chambers on Earth are connected. What's the purpose of this connection, and is it something like the link between Budic columns?
As I said before, the purpose of this connection is to strengthen and enlarge the planetary light grid. Yeah.
Do they also connect to the other tachyon chambers throughout the galaxy?
Yes, all the tachyon chambers as part of the planetary energy grid are vertically connected to the tachyon chamber network, or I would even say to the galactic network of light, which is existing throughout the galaxy.
And how do tachyon rooms help beings from the invisible world?
Yes, beings from the invisible world can sometimes connect to the tachyon chamber, but since most of those beings exist far away in nature, far away from human settlements, it's not that often.
Okay. The tachyon chamber is technology. It could be considered as the adjustment of very delicate, precise clock. The guardian of the chamber is the guarantor of it working correctly by not touching anything that's in the chamber and by not adding any other elements. Once that's done, the chamber functions perfectly. Can a tachyon chamber be corrupted by the dark, and if so, how?
The tachyon chamber, if you don't modify it in any way, cannot be corrupted by the dark. But if you change any of the elements, of course, then the basic protection of the chamber is gone.
Yes, logical. During a session, does the tachyon chamber remove the following entities? Reptilians, disembodied souls, human and animal, entities related to witchcraft, thought forms, Egrorians, elementals, entities related to disease, the invisibles on a mind plane. Are there any other entities that can be removed by the chamber?
The tachyon chamber can remove all those entities during the healing session, and this is one of the strong points of the chamber. This is one of the most important aspects of the chamber here.
Okay, so flaws that we have in our various energy bodies that allow these entities to hang on are not closed during a session. So one session's not enough to protect us in the future from being attacked again. We have to keep working on ourselves regularly. Do you agree with this?
Of course, one healing session cannot solve all of our problems which have been accumulated through this lifetime and past lifetimes. But if you take a few regular sessions, you will definitely experience quite a bit of an improvement.
Wonderful. Our energetic memories, our low frequencies, present life, past life, transgenerational, collective consciousness, exert an energetic attraction. Once transmuted, these attractions no longer take place. In this way, we influence a more positive future for ourselves. Is this correct?
Yes.
Okay, so after a session in the tachyon room, our own energy is increased. What level can we reach?
There is no limit. It's up to us, up to our free will, and up to our willingness to accept the healing.
Okay, so do all the people who use the room contribute to elevating the vibration of the earth and its inhabitants, and also to its liberation?
Yes, of course.
Wonderful. So out of curiosity, what if we were to do a tachyon session for a person who's left the physical plane a long time ago? How can the tachyon chamber work with them?
That is possible. This incarnated person can seek for the healing in a tachyon chamber. For example, if he has or she has trouble crossing over to the higher planes to release attachments to the earth and to resolve inner issues, that can help as well.
Oh, so how can this be done?
You need to do a ceremony before or short meditation before the healing session. Invite that being, if one of your loved ones which has died before, you just invite him or her to the chamber at a certain appointed time, and the chamber will do its work.
Would the person be in the tachyon chamber with the deceased, or would the deceased be alone?
Both options are possible. It's up to you.
Okay. So what happens during a person's very first session and the very first connection with the room?
In the first session, usually the light beings scan the energy field of the physical body of that person and adjust the healing frequency and do the first healing session.
So is this potentially why people in the first or second session very often give feedback that this is when they have the strongest feelings, but sometimes that's not the case?
Usually, people have not been exposed to tachyon energy for a very long time, and the first exposure is, of course, usually the most intense one. It's like you were not drinking water for a few days, and the first drop of water is, of course, the most intense.
Okay, so during the session, the person contacts to different light frequencies. Can they easily reconnect with this by meditating or by letting go emotionally and mentally in the future?
They can to a certain degree, but without the assistance of the chamber, they will need some time, some practice, regular practice of meditation, for example, to keep that frequency.
Okay. A comment from our friend Dr. McNamara. He says, I've seen miraculous developments with some people, and there seems to be a change in the gravitational field and even the timeline that the client experiences. Time seems to speed up or slow down significantly. Even after just one session, people seem to glow a lot more and have sparkly eyes. Can you tell us about extending the time in the chamber with people for serious illnesses? And if it's possible, how long would you recommend?
Usually, I would not recommend this because the allotted 20 minutes is the optimal time for human beings to integrate that amount of tachyon energy. So I would not recommend extending this.
Okay, perfect. So concerning animals, can you explain to us how they work energetically in relation to human beings?
Can you rephrase this question?
But animals, when they do a tachyon session, there seems to be a different energetic reaction, or a simpler one. But have you had any experience with this?
Usually, the mental body of the animals is much less developed, and they are much more in contact with their emotional body. So, in a way, they are able to feel the energy more directly and more clearly and more simply, and they have less or almost zero psychological defense mechanisms. So, healing for animals is usually easier and shorter.
So, what do they get out of being put in the tachyon chamber?
Again, it restores their physical health, vitality, and energy field gets balanced.
Okay, and how does it work on the level of the group of animal souls?
If an animal of a certain animal soul gets into the chamber, this assists the evolution of the whole soul group of that particular animal.
Okay. The situation here on Earth with implants, black holes, and the primary anomaly is holding back our progress, our healing. Is it some of our work has been hoarded? Once the event has taken place and implants have all been removed, will we finally have access to all the fruit of our hard labours?
Yeah, finally, after the event or when things get improved, finally we will get some tangible results, and all the work we have done has not been for nothing.
Can you explain how dark forces hinder our healing process when in some cases we have reharmonized certain frequencies?
Usually when we reach a certain level, they try to attack to lower the vibrational frequency again.
Okay. And do tachyon chambers exist on an etheric plane or on an astral plane?
The tachyon chambers of the advanced civilization exist both on physical, etheric, astral, mental planes.
Okay, and how are they different from the tachyon chambers we know on Earth?
Okay, the tachyon chambers we have on Earth is I would say, the easiest, simplest version of the tachyon chamber, which is suitable for the stage of development of the surface planetary situation. The tachyon chambers that the light forces have are usually much more advanced.
And can our astral bodies go into these chambers while we're asleep?
Yes.
Marvellous. In a tachyon chamber, following a session, a person expressed the fact that they've never seen such a pure channel. Can you explain the purity of the power of the channel for the chamber to the source?
Yes, it is actually the purest channel possible because it is based on quantum connection between the source of the tachyon field, and the chamber. So this is the purest channel possible at this moment on the surface of the planet.
Okay. Some tachyon chambers guardians add a quantum fluctuation resonator and or a Pleiadian stargate during the session. They're the only additional objects that can be placed on the floor of the room. What does working with the quantum fluctuation resonator bring to the session?
It harmonizes the quantum field, which to a certain degree increases the efficiency of the chamber.
And what does working with the Pleiadian stargate bring to the session?
It brings additional Pleiadian energy to the session because the tachyon chamber itself is a Pleiadian technology, and the Pleiadian stargate makes it a little bit more efficient. So this is also recommended.
Okay. Why do you recommend not doing any preparation just before, during, or just after the session?
Before the session, you can do a preparation if you wish, like a short meditation, but it's not mandatory. People can use their own guidance about this.
And do you advise people not to do other treatments the same day, even a few days before or after, or is it not a problem to do different things on the same day?
It is not extremely recommended because the tachyon energy has full efficiency working by itself, but if you have to do other treatments, that's okay, but just don't do them. I would say allow at least a few hours for the integration process to be, at least to a certain degree, completed before doing other treatments on the same day.
Okay. Many tachyon chambers around the world have had a very sharp drop in patronage recently, since about autumn 2022. Do you know why?
Yes, there was a strong attack of the dark forces against the tachyon chambers because they were really getting very successful when they tried to diminish the number of visitations because people were getting healed, problems were getting resolved.
And are the forces of light aware of this, and what actions are they taking or could they take to help us resolve the situation?
Yes, they are aware of this. They're giving guidance to some people, and one part of this guidance is this interview because it will bring a more clear understanding of what the tachyon chambers are, and people can make more informed decisions about the tachyon chambers.
Thank you. Now let's look at medbeds for a moment. Once the event is over and they are available, who will look after medbeds? Will it be individuals who would like to, or specialists such as doctors, galactic beings?
Okay, the first medbeds will be introduced after the event, and they will be given to, I would say, qualified personnel. They will go through some short training, and they will be checked that their, I would say, personality structure will be checked against inner corruption. And in such a way, this network will grow exponentially until it reaches the critical mass, so people on the surface can get some real healing.
And in what type of structures will they be available?
Can you rephrase this question?
Will they be in hospitals? Will it be in special places? Will there be medical centres, or will it be completely apart?
This will go through different channels. It will go through official channels, through hospitals, through healing centers, through spiritual healing centers, to private homes, to private companies. It will be a combination of all of this.
Okay. We regularly talk about the work with the Tachyon Chamber on the harmonization of our different energetic bodies. So let us now look at what the Chamber can bring us from another point of view. For example, some people mention during the session or even after the session that they receive information downloads, but that they have the feeling that they can't access it. Can you elaborate on this?
Okay, the Tachyon healing session, the light forces are trying to create an energy channel with that particular person, and sometimes they're trying to send information, and based on the consciousness of that being, that person that's being healed, it determines how successful that person will be in receiving the download.
Okay, and what can the room bring us beside physical improvement?
It can bring emotional healing, energetic restoration, clarity of the mind, and spiritual connection.
Thank you. So at the moment, there are numerous earthquakes all over the world. There have been 2 in Turkey, one in early February and the other earlier this week. And at the end of January, you informed us that the ancient Atlantean light grid was being reactivated. And that was very important aspect of this process is the reactivation of the ancient Atlantean goddess vortexes, and that they're connected to the ancient Atlantean equator. Are the earthquakes in Turkey related to these reactivations?
This is one aspect of this. They are connected to this and also to some geopolitical situations. And of course, unfortunately, according to the sources, they were not taking place naturally.
Okay, so can you explain what's happening with the hot air balloons in North America and China?
It's a geopolitical game to engineer the right climate conditions for the world war. This is what they want.
Okay, so thank you very much. This is the end of the interview. Do you have a message for us and for the spring of 2023?
Okay, the spring of 2023 is an extremely challenging time and an extremely promising time. So let us all work to anchor as much light as possible so that the maximum positive timeline gets manifested. Big things are possible, but we need to keep our focus. The victory of the light.
Marvelous. So again, many thanks for you taking this time with us. I'd like also to thank Gwen from the Jardin de Pléiade in Brittany, France, for organising this second interview. Eric for the technical support from the Tachyon Chamber near Poitiers in France. And all the Tachyon Chamber guardians who are working to bring the new world into being. Speak to you soon, Cobra, and we're going to end this with some music.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.